This episode of Conversational Hugs with Lynne Michelle is proudly sponsored by Fox Chase Cancer Center.
Hugs, and welcome to another episode of Conversational Hugs with Lynne Michelle. I am your host, Lynne Michelle, and we are here at Fox Chase with Hannah Campbell, geneticist, and I would love for you, Hannah, to introduce yourself to our community and tell us what you do here at Fox Chase.
Yeah, thank you so much for having me. So I'm a genetic counselor. I got special training in learning how to help people get genetic testing to figure out if they have a genetic risk for different medical conditions.
Okay.
Here we focus on inherited risk for cancer, for all different types of cancer, including breast.
Awesome.
Yeah. So that's
Awesome. Okay. And so walk me through a individual prospective patient coming in to receive genetic testing. What does that look like from start to finish?
Yeah, so we see people who either have a cancer diagnosis and are going through treatment, have had cancer in the past, or have a family history but don't have cancer themselves.
Okay.
So they get referred to us based on their personal or family history. We meet with them to talk about genetic testing and, give them some understanding of what genetic information might tell them so they can make an informed decision about whether they want to go through with the testing. So we start off by taking a detailed family history. We want to understand who in their family has had cancer, what age were they diagnosed, and what type of cancer they had. Usually things that are most concerning are if people had cancer at younger ages than we might expect. So for breast cancer, that would be under the age of 50.
Okay.
If they had rare types of cancer like ovarian, pancreatic cancer, male breast cancer, which men can get breast cancer as well, but it is rare. We also look to see if there's more people in the family getting a certain type of cancer than we might expect just happening by chance. So, usually 3 or more people on the same side of the family who've had breast cancer is a little concerning.
3 or 4?
3 or more.
3 or more.
Yeah.
Wow. Okay. And so they come in, and are you gathering that information by just having conversation? Or are they filling out a form?
Yeah, usually what we do is we call the person ahead of time. Our scheduler will get some basic information on the phone and just make sure it's appropriate for them to see us and that their family history is concerning. And then when I meet with them, I do a 3-generation family tree, or we call it a pedigree.
Okay.
We basically want to get information about people's close relatives up to their grandparents and out to their first cousins. And so I'll go through all the information with them in detail. I think something to note is that a lot of people don't know their family history, so that's definitely something we run into a lot. And I always let people know, it's okay. We're going to go based on what you do know, but there's a lot of stigma about talking about these things,
Yes.
or maybe people are estranged from certain family members. So, we just kind of go based on what we do know about the family.
But the more detailed information, the better.
Yeah, usually it can be really helpful having more information versus less, but there are some people who know nothing about their family, and that's another motivation that they might have to get this testing done, right? Just to make sure that there's nothing they're missing.
Right. So I love that. And so the actual test itself looks like what?
So the test is done through either a blood draw or a saliva, so we actually have someone spit in a tube. So the same way if you've done like 23andMe Ancestry, that's the same way that they do that.
So nothing hard, nothing, scary, either spit or
blood.
Blood.
And a lot of people, if they're being treated here, are getting blood work all the time anyway, so we'll just add it on.
Gotcha. I love that it's that easy, but the conversation is probably harder than the actual having that. So I come in, I don't have a whole lot of information, or I was adopted. You're basing it off of just my saliva and my blood test.
Yeah, so I think what can be hard if someone doesn't know a lot about their family history, a lot of insurance coverage for testing is based on personal or family history of cancer. So we do get people coming in who are adopted or don't know their family history and they're really concerned. And there are options to pay out of pocket for testing without going through insurance. Right now it's about $250, which for some people is no big deal, for other people can be a lot. So there are some labs that fortunately have some payment plans and things that you can do to try to spread out that cost or lower the cost based on income. But a lot of why we get the family history is also to help with getting insurance coverage.
Gotcha.
Yeah. But if insurance will not cover the test or you don't meet the criteria, there are still options for getting the testing done if you really want to do it.
So what I hear you say is don't allow the lack of funding prevent you from moving forward, because ways can be, we can make ways to have that done.
Yes, and I think it's another benefit of going through a clinic like ours where we have genetic counselors that are familiar with how the insurance coverage works, because sometimes if you do it through a local doctor, they might not have as much experience and you might end up with a large bill.
Gotcha.
So we try our best to prevent that.
That's good to know. That's good to know. With our nonprofit Hugs Around America Foundation, we started an initiative called Know Your Numbers. Know Your Numbers, or pardon me, Know Your Risk. Know Your Risk. And we suggest that the family begin to catalog or journal their family health history tree, right? And so not just breast, that's your high blood pressure, that's your diabetes, but somebody in the family. You have one auntie who just know everybody's secrets, right? Mm-hmm. Begin to have that conversation and start, and it's like grandmom and granddad. I don't know if your grandparents had the big Bible with all the information. So that's what that health history family tree will do. That journal will have all that information, and you're passing that along from generation to generation, because knowledge is power, and funding can come into place because you have this information. And so we definitely stress that as well. But I love the fact that Fox Chase has a department. I love the fact that there's counselors that can answer your questions. That's important. And in our community of color, we sometimes don't have those conversations for whatever reason. And so I stress that, our goal is to remove the stigma from a disease or from cancer. And conversation is just that. It's just a conversation, and you can lean in, and it can start with, hey, mommy, tell me, what did grandma pass away from? Right? So we just can't say she got old, she got sick. What exactly was the illness? And if we begin to dig in and lean in to have those conversations, that information will just begin to pour out. When I told 10 years ago that I had breast cancer, I found out that my aunt on my dad's side and my cousin, I was like, what? What? Where was I? What? Oh, yeah, they had, yeah.
And unfortunately, that's how it goes a lot, is once someone is diagnosed with cancer and starts asking questions, that's when all the information comes out. And it would be nice to do that before, to get that information beforehand.
So, yeah, so that's exactly right. And so I always say, I'm not going to quantify that. Just tell me how do you see African Americans come through the door, and what's the conversation? Is it what I just said, like, oh, I didn't know, or I do know? Have you seen a difference in African Americans versus another population?
Yeah, I think that a lot of the differences that I've noticed are, based on ethnicity or ancestry, but also based on socioeconomic status and just how close families are. I think that there's, if the more split up a family is and the less they keep in touch with each other, the harder it is to keep track of these things. Also, in terms of education, if someone's more educated and has a better understanding of their medical history, then they might be able to pass that information along more easily. If someone, is not comfortable with talking about health or doesn't feel like they have the language for it, it can be harder to explain these things accurately to their family members. So I definitely have noticed a difference, and I see, I think the most important thing is to write things down as you find them out. Something that I was thinking about when you were talking is that a lot of people will tell me, I haven't told my family yet that I was just diagnosed with breast cancer, and so I will talk to them about why is that? What is making you feel uncomfortable doing this? And what are their concerns? And try to talk through that a little bit. Because I do, in addition to having training on genetic testing, have some counseling training. I can help people kind of process what's going on with their diagnosis and how can they communicate that with their family. And also, a lot of people don't realize how life-saving this information can be. They might just think,
yes,
oh, well, this is only affecting me, and not realize that that might be harming other family members to not tell them what's going on.
Yes. I was guilty of that. I did not share for 3 months. I shared my diagnosis after I had my lumpectomy. And it wasn't that I was afraid. It was I didn't have the bandwidth to handle their emotions, because I was still trying to navigate that cancer was attached to my name.
Absolutely.
And so I'll tell you, because once they go in, they're either going to say we got it all or it's something else. And so praise God that the lumpectomy got it all, but I still went through radiation and chemo, and I did not have, it was not in my lymph nodes, right? And so it's a couple reasons. So I am definitely guilty for not, it was 3 months of me walking, just me and Jesus, handling this, and then after lumpectomy, I was able to have that conversation.
And I will say that example, don't be too hard on yourself, because that's okay. I think it's very common for people to need time for themselves, to really focus on themselves at the very beginning. I think the bigger thing is just long term within, a shorter, not 3 months. 3 months probably doesn't make a difference, but maybe within a year or a year or two,
Gotcha.
letting them know, just to make sure, they're aware of what's going on. But it's also, while protecting your own feelings, I think it can be very overwhelming sharing this information.
Yes.
And having to deal with everyone else's reactions while you still don't know how you're feeling about what's going on, right? So, so I think there's always a balance to be found with these things. And, and I think, again, like sharing the information can be done after the initial
shock,
chaotic period
yes.
of trying to get started on treatment.
Yes.
Yeah.
Okay, so is there anything that you could tell me or enlighten me on how to share about genetic testing? Is there a nugget that you can give me that I can continue to take that going forward in my community?
Yeah, that's a good question. So I think the most important thing is that, if you have a close family member who's had a cancer, like Kathy was talking about, letting your doctors know.
Yes.
If your family member had genetic testing, so what we're looking at is whether that person was born with a genetic risk, so something in their genes that puts them at a higher risk for a certain type of cancer.
Okay.
And those risks can potentially get passed on to children. They could be in your brothers and sisters, where they're usually passed down from generation to generation. So letting your family member know, I had this cancer, this is where it started in my body, this is what type of cancer it was. Let them know if you had genetic testing, and a normal or negative result is just as important to communicate as a positive result that finds a mutation, because that's still really helpful to know, okay, I had this testing done, we did not find anything, so you can let your doctor know, we did the test, we didn't find anything. If they do find a mutation or a gene mutation, then giving them the information about where to go to get their own testing done, or at least go talk to someone about it. I think a big misconception is people think that when they come to see me that they have to do the testing that day.
Okay.
That is not the case. Everyone is on their own timeline. Our job is to give them the information so they can make a decision that works for wherever they're at. Yeah.
That's nice to know. Well, Hannah Campbell, I thank you so much for taking this time, sitting down with Conversational Hugs with Lynne Michelle. You have dropped some nuggets that I will take forward, and I know my community and the listeners will definitely take this to heart.
Thank you so much for having me.
Thank you.